Successful teamwork ultimately comes down to practicing a small set of principles over a long period of time. Hey guys, welcome back to Why Should I Read That? I'm John. This is the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, the founder and president of the Table Group, a management consulting company that consults 78 of the top 100 Fortune companies. And this book, published in 2002, became a New York Times best-selling book and has joined the classics of modern business literature. And it gives you principles in story form that you can apply to your teams today. Why do I believe you should read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team in 2017? There are a couple reasons. First of all, as humans, we're wired to relate to stories. And Lencioni writes business fables, such as a book that I reviewed earlier this year, The Ideal Team Player, in the same fashion that he wrote some of his early books, like The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So the 5 dysfunctions are played out in the halls of a fictional company called Decision Tech, a startup in Silicon Valley, and its blue-collar type CEO, Catherine, who understands the fundamentals of team building. Now, I want to give a shout out to a second great reason that I think is corollary to the teamwork aspect, but Lencioni has phenomenal interpersonal awareness, and he writes that into his books in a way that someone like myself, who's learning that or wants to learn some of that, is able to pick up on and look for ways to apply it in my own life. So that's not necessarily about the teamwork, but the interpersonal awareness on display in this book is top notch. So let's go through the 5 real quick. First of all, absence of trust. If trust is absent within your team, you end up with invulnerability. Individuals who are unwilling to talk about the real issues because they feel guarded about themselves. They don't feel comfortable with the team that they are a part of. If invulnerability and absence of trust is present, we end up with people fearing to be involved in constructive conflict. According to Lencioni, constructive conflict is the fastest way to get things done within a team setting. But if we fear that, we end up with some sort of artificial harmony that only leads to ambiguity and consensus. When we have that, we end up with lack of commitment, our third dysfunction. Lack of commitment leads to ambiguity about team goals. If people are unclear about what they want, they can't buy into it. And that leads right on into the 4th dysfunction as well, avoidance of accountability. If you do not buy in to your team goals, how can you be accountable to reaching the goals that you've set? Avoidance of accountability ultimately plays out by having simply low standards for individuals within the team. And finally, the pinnacle of our pyramid, the 5th dysfunction of a team, is an inattention to results. Those other 4 dysfunctions lead up to the point where a team can become so focused on status and ego of the individual members that the ultimate goal of the team, whether it's profits, whether it's furthering the nonprofit services that you provide, whether it's whatever it happens to be, status and ego can get in the way of that, and you can have an inattention to results. So let's run through them. Absence of trust, leading to invulnerability. Fear of conflict, leading to artificial harmony. Lack of commitment, which plays out in ambiguity. Avoidance of accountability, that leads to low standards. And finally, inattention to results. That gives yourself status and ego. And as we learned 2 weeks ago in the book Ego is the Enemy, or several weeks ago, Ego is the Enemy is the number 1 killer of your potential, is succumbing to the effects of ego in your own life. According to Lencioni, in the final chapters of this book, there is a role that the leader of a team can take to minimize or eliminate each of these dysfunctions of a team. Now, one thing that's also helpful to note in this book is that personal styles definitely affect the way that these dysfunctions play out. For example, after I did some of the research in here and the diagnostic exercises as I looked at the team that I manage, I realized that fear of conflict is one thing that is holding my team back. And that's because of my personal personality, it's my Myers-Briggs, my DISC, whatever you want to call it. You can learn more about that by reading the great book Personality Plus, or any number of other books on personalities. But my personality is averse to conflict. I like to seek consensus. And that plays out in leading towards the dysfunction of fear of conflict. So be aware of that your personal preferences, your personal style is going to affect the way that your team functions. So I'd like to give a big shout out to Patrick Lencioni and Amy Hyatt at the Table Group for sending me this free book for the review. I highly enjoyed reading it. If you manage a company or if you manage a team, this one should easily be on your list of books to read in 2017. Hopefully this video brought you value. If so, and if I earned your subscription, subscribe on YouTube or like the page on Facebook. This is fun to be able to synthesize the information in these books and bring you guys value. If not, no big deal. I'll catch you next week for hopefully a book that you like better. See you later.